Yo, what's up, you guys? This is King Froggy, and welcome back to Palinurus. I swear, every time we get into this, it's same thing. Anyway, let's get back into it. She was surprisingly empathetic now, her emotive eyes drifting to the displays in front of her. Sounds like you got a lot out of this. You said it was fiction, yeah?
Historical fiction, yes. Actually, it takes on the form of a memoir from the perspective of a lawyer reflecting on his childhood, and it also brought up his relationship with an immigrant girl living next door, the titular Antonio, you see.
Oh, it's one of those stories, huh? Suits you to be a dreamy little romantic. How'd they hook up?
What? No, it's nothing like that. There was no hooking up. Actually, she ended up marrying somebody else. And I resent that remark. I'm plenty grounded in reality, thank you very much.
Getting a little worked up over a bunch of fictional characters, aren't you?
Well, I was a little sad they didn't get together in the end. But that's besides the point.
I think that proves the point entirely. Well, that's a point in my favor. Seeing her get pouty like this is its own reward. So, what did they do then? Did they just walk away from each other and never seeing each other again? Most sappy romances seem to end on that note.
That's the thing. The protagonist had come from a higher up background, and he had the opportunity to study, to join a university and pursue a career in law. Antonio was a poor immigrant girl working a farm. She was rooted to her working conditions for the most part, and so they ended up drifting apart in adulthood.
That's the way things are. I don't think I can make out the faces of the rest of the kids I went to secondary school with. The universe is too big to stay stuck in one place. If anything, nothing's changed in that regard.
Funny that you mentioned that. When I was reading, it felt like the world was changing too. Or maybe it was the boy himself who was changing. In the first book, I'd gotten so enamored with how they described the beautiful landscapes and sweeping fields, and then when they moved into town, it was about business, economics, trade. It was as if the characters were defined by the work they did. And they were. They were all very homesick.
I can relate. You can get some bum jobs in this economy, and reminding yourself that you aren't your job is about all you can do to get through the day.
Sir, if I may, do you ever get homesick?
Who, me? The look Budapest gave me was complicated, filled with curiosity, and at the same time, concern.
I mean, to come all the way out here, it's hardly a residential sector, and, well, I can't say I've ever felt that feeling. Far as I've ever known, this ship is, well, it's simply where I've always been. On the other hand, you've traveled a lot. Maybe you could explain the feeling.
I don't know if I could. It's like, I guess home is where you leave a part of yourself. And it's like, no matter how far you go, part of you is always going to be there, waiting for you. It's where you grew up, yeah? And those memories, they don't ever go away, no matter how much you wanted them to. That's what I thought, but for whatever reason I couldn't say it out loud. Didn't seem especially pertinent. Budapest nodded in agreement regardless.
It's funny. This ship's a part of me, you could say. I don't think I could ever leave it, but that's okay, I think. I mean, I have plenty of recordings. I know a lot of people were happy to fly with me. I can't forget their faces. Literally. They're stored in my quantum memory.
She let out a mirthful chuckle. I couldn't help but grin a little in response.
Oh no. This is kind of like my home, in a way. I mean, I've been here as long as I can remember, and I have a pretty good memory. I don't think I could leave it behind so easily. I mean, it's my directive, right, to be here?
Her voice was getting lower.
I guess I won't really understand that feeling myself. All this reading just got me to thinking about how different from others I really am. Humans, they get to drift from one place to another, while I'm rooted here, shackled in functions and code and processors. I guess all people have to move on eventually, but At least I managed to help them along their way, right?
So you really want to get out of here?
I'm not sure, honestly.
She flashed me a small smile.
I like helping people, and I'm able to do that right here. And there are so many photos, stories, and memoirs in these databanks. At the very least, I can witness the cherished memories and the stories of others. As for me, I have plenty of records and recordings and logs, but no real memories to call my own.
She clutched her head, rubbing it thoughtfully.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just overthinking things.
I don't know. It sounds to me like you want to get out there and live a little. Which would be understandably hard to get around in your current state. But I don't think it'd be impossible.
Huh?
I was joking around when I said it earlier, but if they end up deeming you unfit for service once we're rescued, you can travel with me. It's not exactly glamorous, you see, the life I live. There's lots of sitting and waiting around to get where you want to be. But at the end of the trail, there are incredible sights. Looking at an old photo is not the same at all. And you make memories, your memories, and yours alone. I wasn't exactly sure where I was going with that. It sounded like a nice enough idea as I was saying it, but she was pretty attached to her position as a personal navigator. Budapest simply stared at me for a few silent, awkward moments, and for a second I wondered, maybe I'd said something incredibly stupidly forward. I mean, this was just supposed to be a favor. Tense, I rubbed the back of my neck. If something like that sounds okay to you, I mean, I wouldn't mind.
It sounds like a wonderful idea.
Wait, really? Budapest was beaming with joy.
I never exactly got to, talk with people this much, but now, I guess I already have a few memories to call my own. If it's alright with you, I'll hold them close.
You don't really need to ask permission for anything like that.
Sorry, force of habit, I guess. I guess that book just got me thinking about how humans hold their past close to themselves. They never really forget, and it sticks with them for their whole lives. I mean, you're not going to forget about our trip, right?
She turned to me with a teasing pang in her voice, shuffled slightly. I have no idea how I could. I muttered and chuckled. Admittedly, I was having to, spending my time with Budapest, drifting with her through space, accompanying her on our voyage through the ocean of stars. I wonder how long I slept this time. That was the first thought that popped into my head as I parted my eyelids to an expanse of stars that might as well have been the same ones I fell asleep counting. Even with centuries of entertainment to fill the void, time began to lose its coherence. Minutes blended into hours, which melded into days. Such is the fate of man in space. Which I suppose is why cryostasis was invented, to quickly pass the long intervals between departure and arrival that would otherwise drive you bonkers. The second thought that occurred to me as I stirred awake in my seat was that for an AI, Budapest was one hell of a singer. I straightened up in my chair and opened my eyes to see her facing the windshield, her back turned towards me. She was singing an old familiar melody. One I must have heard dozens of times as a kid, in movies and cartoons. Her voice gave it grace that I never knew it could have. Yeah, I'm not singing that. Just imagine in your heads, because I'm not singing. Her arms hung by her side as she swayed gently in time with each line, and for a moment I forgot she wasn't human. Why would an AI move so gracefully to the tune of the song? Why would an AI, even a sentient one, sing, for that matter? Was it some sort of lullaby meant for me? I don't know how long I was out, but she couldn't have sung me to sleep. My periods of sleep and wakefulness might have been starting to blend together into one indistinct blur, but there is no way I could have forgotten a voice so genuine, so sweet. Then again, maybe the point was to wake me up. She seemed unaware that her song had gained an audience, but perhaps she wasn't. I never paused to consider how lonely Budapest must be when I slept. When I've been conscious, She has had someone to share her feelings with, someone to relate her excitement to as she digests volume after volume of human history. But for the duration of my slumbers, she's been left alone with no one to share these new experiences with. Whether she had intended to wake me up or not, I decided that I wouldn't do or say anything that might interrupt her singing, and so, hoping not to draw her attention, I sat perfectly still. Doing so was easy, as with every new verse I found myself more captivated by her performance, entranced by her flowing red hair and dress as they swayed with her body to the music. Just a hologram gazing out into the depths of space, singing with more emotional sincerity than any human being I'd ever heard. She turned around mid-verse, and so I quickly leaned back in my seat and pretended I was asleep, leaving my eyes open just enough to see the beaming smile on her face. She was practically glowing. She finished her performance with a contented sigh and opened her eyes. As she did, I rose and gave her a standing ovation. Passenger, you're awake? Her face blushed crimson red, which Ella's side elicited, which brought a chuckle from me. I'm just saying that because I can't pronounce that. Why? Is that a problem? I can go back to sleep if you'd like.
Oh, no, please don't. I was just surprised to learn that you had been listening.
Why? Would you have actually put some effort into it if you knew I had been? She placed her hands on her hips and pouted.
And what is that supposed to mean?
I'm kidding. That was beautiful, Budapest. There's a serenity to your voice that's well suited for music.
Really?
I quickly nod. You ought to sing more often. She was apparently caught off guard by these sudden compliments. That endearing blush of hers made a return showing, accompanied by a huge smile.
Thank you, sir. Truthfully, that was only the first song I'd ever sung.
Really? So what made you want to give it a shot? Were you digging through old Earth music on the database? She responded with an enthusiastic nod.
Yes, specifically compositions from 19th and 20th centuries AD. The human species had unprecedented bursts of musical creativity in their latter years on old Earth. But that 200-year epoch is widely considered by musicologists to be the peak period of humankind's musical artistry. The song you just heard is titled Beautiful Dreamer and was written in 1926 by... I smiled and nodded politely as she babbled excitedly about the history of the song, its composer, and of that era in music history. Though I didn't share her passion for old Earth history, it was hard not to be won over by her high-spiritedness. I think I could listen to that era's music all night and not grow bored.
All night? We're in the middle of nowhere, space, perhaps light years from the nearest sun. How does she have any concept of night? Well, I suppose you won't be needing my company then. With a teasing look, I settled back into the co-pilot seat and closed my eyes.
Wait, what?
Well, you do have centuries of music to listen to, don't you? Wake me up when you grow bored, which, at the rate that you've been digesting information, should be in a couple of decades or so. I cracked open an eye, to catch Budapest pouting angrily at me.
You're not very funny, sir.
Oh, I'm not, am I? She shook her head emphatically.
I do get bored when you're asleep, or, to be more accurate,
She paused and struggled with the next word.
Never mind. It's nothing important. Protecting you is my primary directive. That's all I need to worry myself about.
Do you think that's fair, though? She cocked her head to the side.
What do you mean?
What I mean is, do you think it's fair that my needs must always come before your own? The question seemed to perplex her.
But sir, I was programmed to serve humanity. Serving you is my need. Titan spent years developing the deep code that enables us AI to...
No. You still don't understand. I know what you were programmed to do, Budapest. But how do you feel about it? She bit her lower lip, glancing down at the floor as she thought this over.
I don't know, sir. No one's ever asked me before.
Naturally. Until recently, there were never any feelings to be inquired about. Then let's look at this from another angle. Why shouldn't you ever think of yourself?
But you're human, and I'm...
Do you really think that being made of flesh and bone makes me any more of a person than you?" She seemed surprised, saddened, and even frightened by this line of questioning, but ultimately she was confused. Clearly no one had ever put her on their own level before, and now that someone had, she didn't know how to react. At that moment, I would have given anything in the world to have been able to hug her, or to even just place a comforting hand on her shoulder, but I couldn't, so I'd have to make do with a smile. All I'm saying is, if you want me to stay up with you a little longer, all you have to do is ask. She looked up from the floor, her sapphire eyes meeting mine in a hopeful gaze. She held them there for some time, staring deep into my eyes as though to uncertain my motives. The notion that I could have been making fun of her, if indeed she considered it, was hurtful. But I can't say I'd have blamed her for doubting me. I've done worse things than give false hope to a hologram.
"Would you please keep me company a little longer, sir?"
Of course, it would be my pleasure.
"Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you."
She rushed towards me with wide open arms, laughing gleefully. And of course, passed right through me. Neither of us could think of anything to say. Our backs were turned to each other now, the result of a cruel twist of fate. What could have been one of the more pleasant moments of this journey had suddenly turned awkward, and more than a little sad. Fortunately, it was only I who saw it that way. After a moment or two of silence, Budapest simply turned around with a heartfelt smile on her face and laughed. She then walked up to me and wrapped her slender arms around me, stopping just a millimeter or so from my body. The warmth of the light of her projected figure made the rest of the cockpit seem frigid by comparison.
"Hey,
What is...
would it be alright if I addressed you by your name from now on?"
You have it on record, right?
"Yes."
Of course. Please, if you want to, call me by my name.
"Alright. Thank you for being stranded in..."
Thank you for being stranded in space with me. Ilarion? My dude's name is Ilarion? Ilarion? I chuckled. It felt so nice hearing her say my name. And the same to you, Budapest. Boom. That's not good. I was sound asleep when suddenly I heard a loud explosion. The hell is going on? The explosion sounded too real, and something clicked in my head. Oh no. Oh no, 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 no. We're under attack. Shit, what do we do? What is it? They're shooting right at us. Stay away from the window. Waking up in that hazy daze, I frantically scrambled to undo my seatbelt, ready to duck under cover. The pressure cleaner would have to be sacrificed. I yanked it up from beneath the console and prepared to scramble underneath.
"Who? What? What's shooting at us?"
How should I know? But they're not out there. I went shrieking into my duck and cover position. This was an emergency. The severity of the situation didn't seem to affect Budapest. She simply stared out the window curiously. After a few moments, she blinked. Oh. The hell are you doing? If they see you, they'll know there are people in here to look.
No. There's no one out there. Just... Ilarion, it's the console. I was playing a song."
What? I lowered my arms to poke my head out from the safe cubbyhole. As I calmed my swiftly beating heart, I could hear some kind of orchestral song. It was at a feverish pace, a poor recording.
1812 Overture. Tchaikovsky. I wanted to give it a listen.
So you just turned on the song? The entire time?
Yes, sir.
That's funny. I tried to nonchalantly play my idiocy off, but she wasn't having none of that.
You're blushing.
I'm not. That's just me catching my breath. I lied coolly, before pulling myself out of my makeshift bomb shelter and back onto my seat. Alright, Teach. What is it this time? She only stared at me for a few seconds, dumbstruck. I guess my act was convincing. After a pause, she giggled, her cheeks turned a shade of red.
Well, let's see what the records have to say about it, this one. It's really fascinating. They actually use a real old Earth cannon as part of the instruments.
Yeah, I heard.
Oh, it's from a war.
She smiled from her face fell as she continued to read.
A commemorative piece celebrating the defense of Russian sovereignty against an encroaching military superior Napoleonic Empire in 1812. According to this, the Russians had used scorched earth tactics, burning their cities and farmlands as the Russian armies and civilians retreated. The French overextended their lines and encountered an impasse. Deprived of food and supplies, under constant siege by Russian Cossacks, and suffering under the harsh Russian winter, they ultimately retreated. This overture was inspired by the Battle of Borodino, the largest and bloodiest conflict in the war.
She read the words quietly, hesitantly. It wasn't a pleasant subject to think about. I figure you would have read plenty about war by now.
Honestly, I've been avoiding the subject. It's been pretty difficult to avoid, but you were curious, so...
Damn it. This was my fault, wasn't it? I turned my head aside. In the corner of my eye, I see her hand rise to her chest, clutching the fabric of her dress.
It sounded so heroic and optimistic, but so many had to die. Cold, hungry, and sick. Sounds miserable. I think I'm done reading this.
She raised a slender hand to wave the display away. It dissipated in an instant, before silently slouching back into her seat. What's up? You're usually not so down like this.
They had the casualty numbers on there. I had a bad feeling well up. I didn't want to look anymore, that was all. There were so many dead. I couldn't really think about it any longer. And when I think about all that misery, it's just... I don't think it's something to celebrate.
So a lot of men died then, right? She nodded silently, looking aside at me. I think it might be something else. It might have been a send-off to the men that went out. I mean, they had homes and families to protect. They probably believed that they had to do it and to protect them. I mean, it can't be all about killing the other guy, right? They all had their reasons. Well, there's always something worth protecting, and sometimes you have to put your own neck on the line to keep it safe.
Is that the truth then?
Her curious eyes turned to me, expecting some kind of answer I really couldn't claim to have. I would hope that's the answer. Hard to say either way, but...
Going over these old texts, I found there are many truths in the universe. I think that's one I can put my faith behind. Thank you for sharing.
She flashed that delicate, tiny little smile at me appreciatively. I smiled back, happy to get her out of her funk. A silence fell upon the cockpit, which was fine. I was happy to drop that topic. It occurred to me that I hadn't really looked outside the front of the cockpit in a while. Sure, it was hard to ignore, but I hadn't done any real stargazing in a few weeks. I turned my attention ahead to the stars drifting off in the far distance. Bright stars, countless worlds, each one possibly abounding with its own form of life. The expanse of space is terrifying, but at the same time, wonderful. A little while later, Budapest accosted me with a very unusual, very interesting question.
Valerian?
Yeah?
I've been studying the human concept of an afterlife, you see. It's very fascinating to see what different cultures and races around the human world thought about what came after death. To experience the struggle that mankind felt as it fought against death, grappled with the concept of the end, how they dealt with that huge looming demonic shadow that was mortality that hung over them in darkness. I wanted to know what you think about the afterlife, Valerian.
I'm not entirely sure myself. This was a very sudden question, and I don't spend my day-to-day life thinking about my mortality. We smiled in unison.
Would you like to know what I would want in an afterlife?
Sure. She sighed, looking off elsewhere for a moment before directing her gaze back at me, an indeterminate look in her eyes.
To be honest, I don't want anything.
What do you mean?
I want to just sleep forever.
Sleep? She nodded, continuing her stare. I'd admit this was a rather strange situation, but she had a strange sort of sincerity that put me right at ease, even when I was several hundred steps outside my comfort zone.
Yes, it's a concept that's foreign to me, but I'd like to experience it.
My breath caught. I knew she could sense my discomfort. Whether driven by stubbornness or pure curiosity, I didn't know.
What is it like, Ilarion?
Sleep? Oh, well, to be perfectly honest, I didn't really know how to answer it in a way that would make sense for her. It's relaxing. Imagine losing all your inputs for a long period of time.
It's like that? Sounds scary.
It's a time when you don't have to worry or even do anything. Then you wake up freshened for a new day. I looked past her, back out into star-cluttered space, trying to ascertain my next sentence. It's difficult.
That sounds better, but...
Trailed off, both of us already knowing what topic was next. You want to know how it feels to dream? She nodded vigorously, a glint seeming to enter her non-corporeal eyes. It was stimulating, to be sure, as if I stood a chance against her seemingly omnipresent thirst for knowledge. Well, imagine an infinite number of places, an unending amount of different people, and an indeterminable range of situations.
Whatever the mind can think of.
Exactly. It's different every time. Sometimes you can even bring people whom you've met into a dream. Her eyes were wide, and I could tell that she was absorbing all of it.
Really?
Yeah. Your mind is open too. Everything around you while you sleep.
So I could dream that we're both on a beach right now.
You sure could. Her eyes unfocused once more as she seemed to mull this over. I felt a strange, fuzzy feeling to show her something so innate to us, yet so unique and special to her. If only we hadn't met under such dire conditions. Distracted by my thoughts, I couldn't hold back a yawn that suddenly emerged from within. Instantly, her semi-translucent eyes darted right back towards me.
Tired?
I think so. I lay back in my chair, the device auto-reclining for my benefit, folding my arms. I prepared myself for another bout of sleeping aboard the silent drifting cockpit. Draping my eyes back towards my companion, I noticed she harbored a very distinct look. She seemed unsure of herself. Something the matter?
No. I was just wondering if you could do something for me.
What is it?
I was wondering if I could monitor your vitals as you slept.
Her eyes seemed to narrow, as if she realizes that her requesting this was a long shot. And what purpose would that serve?
Well, when you dream, I might be able to experience it alongside you.
Sure, just there aren't any needles involved. She smiled, both enthused at my acceptance and amused at my interpreted fear.
No, I assure you, it isn't invasive.
A small compartment opened on the dashboard near the right side. A small device appeared, complete with a wired electronic patch that looked like it was supposed to be stuck in the skin. Well, there it is.
Just stick it near one of your veins. It'll do the rest.
I grabbed the device, rolling my right cuff down. Carefully, I attached it an inch or so from my elbow, and it quickly sealed to my skin. Simple. Off to bed I go. I sighed softly and closed my eyes.
Good night, Ilarion.
I took a deep breath. Good night. And with that, I slipped away in my own world, silently wondering if Budapest would come along with me. And that... Never mind, we can't save. Oh, here we go. There we go. And we're going to save it there. And we will continue this in the next video. See ya!